So today we are taking a look at the Tomoe Gozen fighter from the Unmatched games. Now Tomoe Gozen comes from the Sun's Origin set along with Oda Nobunaga. Now in the backstory here that I'm going to go over for Tomoe, there are a lot of Japanese names that I am certain I am getting wrong. So Tomoe Gozen was a Onimusha, which was a female warrior who fought alongside the men. She was during the Genpei Wars, and she is talked about in the Tale of the Heike. That's a work that is somewhat historical and somewhat fictitious with a mix of all kinds of different elements in it. But she was one of the warriors for Minamoto no Yoshinaka, also known as Kiso Yoshinaka. These guys like to come up with a bunch of different names for themselves. She led a bunch of his guys, went up against much larger armies many times. She was very good with the bow, but she also loved to take the sword and just go at you up close. So as it got to the last battle there for Kiso Yoshinaka, where he realized that he and his army were going to be defeated, he told Tomoe to go away, not to save herself, but because he wanted to die by the men and not by this woman. So she proceeded to not go away. She went back into battle, ran up to the biggest guy that she could find, pulled him off of his horse towards her, cut his head off, rode back to Lord Kiso and dropped the head at his feet. So yeah, that's kind of how she was. So Tomoe is her actual name. Gozen is a title that is something equivalent to like lady. Tomoe Gozen. She is ranged with a health of 14 and is a move of 2. She has no sidekicks and is a solo hero. Her special ability, Attack of Opportunity. When an opposing hero leaves Tomoe Gozen's zone, deal 1 damage to that hero. This is a little bit more complicated than it seems at first, because there can be some debating as to exactly what is leaving Tomoe Gozen's zone. It says Tomoe Gozen's special ability deals damage to a hero who is in her zone and goes somewhere that is not in her zone. This effect happens anytime an opposing hero leaves her zone, regardless of how it happens or where the hero ends up. It can happen from a maneuver action or another game effect, such as a scheme or after combat effect. It can happen after the hero is placed in another space or removed from the board altogether. It can happen multiple times during a single effect if the hero moves out of her zone multiple times. The effect does not happen if the hero is no longer in Tomoe Gozen's zone because Tomoe Gozen moves. This effect only applies to heroes, not sidekicks. Well, it doesn't apply to sidekicks because those 1 health sidekicks would just get completely wiped out. But let's go ahead and take a look at a few things here. You know, if we're in a thing like this here, and Oda, who we're going to borrow here, were to go and maneuver away there, well, Oda would take some damage for leaving it. Okay, so that would be leaving the zone. Now, if Tomoe is like in this spot here, this tricolor, you know, he could move around into here because he'd still be in the blue or the yellow. You know, he could go into any of those zones that she's still in. You know, he could maneuver from here to there and still be fine because he would still be in yellow. If she moves, well, that's not a problem for him because she's the one that moved. Now, if we had a setup like this here where Oda is sitting here and Tomoe is here, and let's say that he boosts to get up there to Tomoe, so he 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. While he does end up back in her zone at the end and did start in her zone, he left her zone here, so he would take damage for leaving her zone on that boost maneuver, even though he went back into her zone. It doesn't matter how he moves, if he moves himself, or if Tomoe moves him, or if some other fighter in like a co-op or free-for-all or 2v2 were to move him. Anyway, he gets moved. The only way it really doesn't happen is if Tomoe leaves your zone, then that's her leaving. Or if it's something like on Harrot with the doors, if the door was to be closed, that zone you're in would just no longer be Tomoe's zone. You didn't leave, so it wouldn't be damage for you there. And as we take a look at Tomoe Gozen's cards here, I believe that is her name there on the side in the Japanese script, and this is the emblem of the Minamoto clan, which she was associated with. So let's take a look at these cards. So first of all, we're going to start off with Witness My Last Battle, which this is one of the promo foil cards that you get for ordering it from Restoration, and you see that they have 2 colors of foil on it, so it's really nice. This is an attack of 7. 7, 7. This attack can only target a fighter adjacent to Tomoe Gozen. Play it face up. Okay, this first bit here, this is just a requirement to be able to play this card. That can't be canceled because it's just a requirement to play it. But it has to be played face up and when she is adjacent, so she can't do this at range. And after combat, this ends the turn. So she just walks up, smacks you for a 7. You're going to know it's a 7, and she is going to end right there adjacent to you, but, you know, what are you going to do about it? It's a 7. There's a few fighters that can do something, but most, even if they know it's coming, they can't do a whole lot. The best that most fighters can do is just throw a 4 at it, so they're going to take 3 damage most of the time. 5 against thousands. After combat, if Tomoe Gozen is adjacent to the opposing fighter, you may discard a card to put this card back into your hand. Okay, well, it's a 4, so, you know. Are there some things in here that just a blank 4 attack going back into your hand could be worth? Well, maybe. Fearsome Strength. Immediately, Tomoe Gozen may swap spaces with an adjacent fighter. After combat, deal 1 damage to an adjacent fighter. Okay, well, it's interesting that this is an immediate swap, which means it happens before any other effects are able to go in there other than like cancels and things. And of course, the deal 1 damage to an adjacent fighter, you still have to be adjacent at the end to be able to get that. But this is a good way to get out of like a pin or something, since she does like to go up against other guys, and she is solo. She needs some ways to get out of a pin. A Warrior's Way, attack of 2. After combat, move the opposing fighter up to 3 spaces. Then, if they are a hero, place Tomoe Gozen in a space adjacent to them. Okay, so something to point out here. If you're in something like this here, where you're attacking, you're able to move him some spaces. That moved him out of Tomoe's zone, so he would take the damage, even though Tomoe is going to pop right back up next to him. So that's a way to be able to get the ability off with the movement there, and it keeps her adjacent to him, so it just deals the damage, but they don't get away. Piercing Shot. This is a card that was seen in Robin Hood's deck. So attack of 2. After combat, draw 2 cards. But this would be a good one if you're not needing the card draw to use with 5 against thousands to be able to get that 4 back there. I'll point out here, while the green and the purple are Tomoe's major colors, we're going to see kind of an old style Unmatched thing where we have red kind of here in the colors for the attack cards, which is really nice. You don't see that as much now, and I like seeing that back on there again. Refuse to Retreat. This is a defensive 3. Immediately, Tomoe Gozen cannot leave her space for the rest of the turn. If the opposing fighter is adjacent, your opponent discards 1 card. So it's just some more adjacent effects. It makes it where she can't leave her space. They could leave, but you know, if they leave the zone, that's gonna damage them. Deeds of Valor, defensive 2. Tomoe Gozen cannot take more than 2 combat damage this combat. Again, now this one's just for this combat. That's not for turn, so it's just going to be this combat, but it can kind of stop her from taking a lot. Unfortunately, this is a 2, so a lot of times you'd be taking 2 damage or so anyway with a lot of attacks. Confront any demon or god. Versatile of 3, draw 1 card. Then if you lost the combat, look at your opponent's hand and choose 1 card for them to discard. So it's just a way to kind of hit back at them if you lose combat. A worthy opponent, versatile of 3. If the opposing fighter is a hero, this card's value is 5 instead. So this is kind of like a heroic shift, that if they're a hero, this becomes a 5. She's got a number of things to deal with heroes specifically and not sidekicks. So it's interesting that she likes going after worthy opponents. Flash of Steel, versatile of 2. Immediately, if the opposing fighter is a hero, cancel all effects on your opponent's card. After combat, if the opposing fighter is adjacent, deal 1 damage to them. So you can only cancel heroes and not sidekicks. Once again, she likes going after these worthy opponents, but she can deal damage to them if they're adjacent. And generally speaking, that immediate cancel there is going to stop them from being able to run off most of the time. Skirmish. You know, skirmish. Versatile 4, if you won the combat move, a fighter in the combat up to 2 spaces. Of course, she has skirmish so that she can push guys out of her zone and get some ping damage in. And lastly, we have her only scheme, Lord Kiso's Final Stand. Move Tomoe Gozen up to 3 spaces. She may move through sidekicks, then choose 1. Tomoe Gozen recovers 2 health or gain an action. Action gain is nice, but a lot of times you're going to want that health because you only have 14 to start with. But this gives you 6 more health, so that gives you a pool of 20, which is pretty good. So we see that she likes to be up close while she is ranged. She loves adjacency, to be able to smack you around. She's got a lot of ways to push people out of her zone, and this ability is going to do a lot of interesting things. Your opponents are going to have to play around this ability here, which is going to be really interesting, that they're going to kind of want to get into her zone and stay in there. They're not going to want to leave it a lot. So when they go in, they're going to want to stay in there. And if you take the initiative and go run into there and just stop with your turn in there, you know, they've got to, if they want to run away, they got to take a damage. So it can just really be a problem. Of course, sidekicks don't run into that, so they can kind of run sidekicks in and out of her zone and harass her. And that may be one way to do that. But anyway, it makes her a very interesting fighter, a very interesting solo fighter, and I think that people are going to really like her a lot. So if you found this video interesting, give it a thumbs up and a like. You can go down to the comment section and let me know anything that you think about this video down there. And you can also subscribe to my channel. Make sure to catch all the videos I post so you don't miss anything. I'm Poindexter G, and we'll see you around next time.